Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for having me. I'm not sure I'll be as amazing as I promise, but I'll try. Um, Again, I really would like this to be an open conversation, and so don't be shy. I'm sure that your questions are probably the questions that other people are asking themselves as well. So feel free to interrupt at any time. I don't like to find myself just giving a speech to the nation. I'll share my screen. Wait, just a second. Something jumped on my computer now. Um, Sorry, technical issues. I'm going to share my screen with a presentation. Just let me know that you can see it okay. Okay. Everyone can see it now?
Yeah, okay.
Great. So it's a bombastic headline about finding your dream job. Um, and I'll try I'll speak a bit about my journey, about Orca, where I am at currently. And also let's talk about a bit the hiring process, what you can do to be proactive about finding the good job that you're looking for and the one that is suitable for you. And this is something that these are just tips that I also use for myself. I've recently joined Orca just about 4 months ago. So I've used all of this when I was looking for a job, and it's always relevant. A bit about me, my journey. Like Ariella said, I was not born in high tech. I did my BA at Business and Human Resources Management, and then I did my master's degree in Tel Aviv University in Applied Social Science, which is Limudei Avoda, which is the HR master in Tel Aviv. And throughout that, I worked at a government institution. Someone needs to mute. Throughout that, I worked at a government institution, the furthest thing you can find from high tech, very bureaucratic, very old fashioned, let's call it that, not creative, not dynamic, but I did gain a lot of experience from that, which is relevant always at different stuff. It's just a matter of how you're able to adapt your experience to different things. And I did take one very important thing from my experience working there is that I like to find a job where I feel that I'm doing something more than I'm working for something more than just my paycheck at the end of the month. And that is an added value that I'm looking for. And then when I decided that this was no longer the place for me, I started looking for another job. And it was way back. I've been doing HR for many years, which I'm not going to tell you how many because you'll be able to know how old I am. And I applied for a startup company as an HR admin and a recruiter. I had no experience in high tech. I did not know how to do recruiting. I've never done recruiting, let alone not in tech recruiting. The startup world was 180 degrees from where I used to work. And the CEO who interviewed me, he gambled. He literally gambled on me. And he literally hired me for this position based on my potential and the skills and my abilities that he was able to see further than just what my CV was conveying. And this was my beginning in the high-tech industry. I've been working there since then in different companies, from small startups where I joined the 5th or the 6th employee, and they grew to more than 100 global companies. Some of them was less than 100 when I joined and ended up being more than 500 and more than 10 different sites globally. Previous to my current job, I also joined a large corporate, a global corporate. But again, everything HR needed to be built from scratch. So there was a lot of challenge. I do find this world, and especially the startup world, this is the challenge and the dynamic that is suitable for me. But also, it's especially startups, they give you that extra added value that I'm looking for. The feeling that you're creating something and you're being part of something exciting is great. And it's also, startups are a place where you feel you have much more impact. Even if you're doing a junior position, you're building something and you're part of that, and you're making an impact. So this is currently I'm the VP HR at Orca AI. So VP HR is the Vice President of Human Resources, responsible for everything HR, from hiring to firing, as they say, and everything in the middle. And Orca AI is actually, I think, the most exciting and special startup that I've joined ever, that I've been part of ever. There's a lot of word in the slide, but I'll just explain in one sentence what we're doing. We're building a system that is like Waze and Mobileye together for ships instead of cars. And you might ask yourself, well, why do you even need that? Well, everything you know about autonomic cars, or even in the flight industry, does not apply to the maritime world, to the sea. You don't have the technology, you don't have that visibility. And when we come to our customers today and we're telling them, listen, we have this great solution for you for that problem that you know you're having, and it's a real-time system based on AI, they don't understand what we're saying. So it's completely changing everything. What does the system do? It is able to make sure to the navigation is the smoothest and the optimist way possible for that vessel. And also is a system that allows to avoid collisions. And again, you might ask yourself, well, collisions at sea? The sea is so big. And what are you talking about? So there's more than 3,000 accidents in the sea each year. And besides costing a lot of millions and sometimes even more to everyone, which eventually is, we pay that price because shipping is becoming more and more expensive. It's a life lost. There are accidents, and it is human life that we're talking about. So the whole issue of safety and navigation in the maritime world is currently very much like it was 100 years ago. And Orca AI is literally changing the way everything works, and it's making that transformation. You can see in the screen behind me in the background, this is actually the system, but it's not it's like the backside of it. It's a very smart computer. It is surrounded by cameras, both infra and other kind of cameras. It is all transformed into that computer with the systems on the vessels like radar or sonar. It is also connected to other systems like geographic or even weather systems. And it's all transformed in real time to two users. One user's on the vessel, you get a screen with, imagine Waze plus, instead of Mobileye just beeping on your car, it is completely full UI. You can see all the vessels around it. It calculates all of the paths of the objects and gives you alert if there is a chance of collision, and also gives you another path, so you can change your path in order to avoid collision. And it also is in use for the fleet managers and the fleet operations on land to allow visibility of what they're going on the vessels, which they never had before. and it's kind of surprising, but it is what it is. We're a small startup where we just recently finished round A of funding. We already have, the system is already installed on a few tens of ships, and our customers are tier one of the shipping world. Companies like Merck and Shell, which have fleets of over 700 vessels. So we're based in Tel Aviv. We're growing very fast. We'll probably have another round B soon, and we'll grow even more, which means a lot more job for me. A little bit about how we recruit. And I put on the screen a bit of a few of the stages, the main stages, but keep in mind that sometimes it is flexible. We won't necessarily go with the same order for each position. If this is an urgent position, we might change the process. We might put some interviews together. This is the basic stages that we use. The first one is obviously CV screening. And then there is an HR interview. The HR interview is not about a psychologic evaluation. It's about giving you a bit of a background about the company you're joining. It's an opportunity for you to check what is the culture of the company you're interviewing for. Learn about the position, learn about how this position is viewed by the company. If you're entering a junior position, this is your opportunity to learn how much training there is in the company for this position to whomever will be hired. So it's kind of an overview interview, but it's also, keep in mind, you are being interviewed on the cultural fit as well. So come prepared to that interview, and we'll talk about it later on how to be prepared for that interview. This is your first chance to make a great impression. Some of the companies, HR interview is in the end, but especially in startups where the impact of every new hire is so great, it is usually sometimes in the beginning. Most of the times it's in the beginning. Then you have one or more professional, or there might be called tech interviews. They might be based on a task that you've been asked to provide, whether it's a home task or in the office. They're usually sometimes between 1 and 3 interviews. We usually do at least one. And then we have management interview. Management interview, one might be with your direct manager, which is partly manager interview and partly a tech interview or professional interview. And then the non-direct manager, which will be a pure management interview. Again, you're being evaluated on both your experience and on how great a fit you are into the team with that how does it work with your manager. If it's a micromanagement manager and you're a person that really needs freedom to do whatever they want, it might not be a good fit. Remember, in the same times you're being interviewed, you're also interviewing the company. Ask those questions. Think what is important for you and ask them, and see how do you connect with those managers, with the HR, with what is required. Interview and ask what is required for the position. Again, how much training there is. Is there a team? Will I be a standalone position? This is your chance, and ask those questions. Don't be shy. I really like being asked questions in interviews when I'm interviewing, by the way. Then you will have a CEO interview. Sometimes it's not the CEO. It's sometimes companies which are larger than 100, the CEO will not interview, obviously, everyone going into the company. So it will be either another management interview, or they will skip this stage, and reference call. So be prepared and have those references at hand when you're asked for. And if you have an issue about giving a certain reference because this is a discrete search, then think about something else and about 2 other people that you can give as reference, maybe colleagues, maybe a previous job, and explain why you're not giving your current boss as well. It's legit to say that. If you pass all of this, you're hired. Welcome to Orca AI.
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Sure.
Just to touch a little bit about this, because I think this is a concern for a lot of us here in terms of the assignment stage. From your experience, specifically for Orca AI, but also your experience in general, could you give a few words on maybe what is expected or any tips you have for like preparing for an assignment like that?
Yes, first of all, go over the assignment. And if you have any questions, the first tip is to ask them. It's better for you to first of all, if you ask, you're more aligned. And sometimes you're not going to be able to, we're aware that you don't have all the information. For example, Orca AI is a very unusual product. It's a very complex system. There are not a lot of candidates familiar with the maritime world. So when you do an assignment or a task for Orca AI, we know that you don't know a lot and you need to make assumptions. But if you're not sure, then ask. Ask what you're looking for. Ask, am I allowed to make assumptions? If you need more information, ask for that. Be engaged in that. Make sure you understand what they're looking for, and then really invest in that assignment.
And who is it that we would want to ask? We would want to ask the recruiter accompanying the process or the hiring manager?
I usually recommend asking the recruiter, and she will probably ask the hiring manager and get back to you. But it depends who is engaged with you in the assignment.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much.
So just a few keys and tips for success. And again, I'm not here lecturing you. This is everything that I'm going to tell you now. I've done this just now 4 months ago. And it took me a while to even me that I've been interviewing and hiring for 5 years now since I've left the Army. I'm kidding. Many years. The experience as candidate is not the same. There are some similarity from both sides of the table, but it's not the same. And it takes time to really make it correct for you. And each person has a different way of what is a good fit for them. But there are some general tips that you can take from this. First, come prepared for each one of the stages. It doesn't matter if it's the CV screening, and I'll go in a bit in the next slides of how you can prepare your CV and your LinkedIn and everything. But come prepared for an interview. Know who you're going to speak with. Come on time. Be even a minute early or 2 minutes early. And if you're late, then let the recruiter or your interviewer know that you're late. It's okay to be late. You know, we're all humans. Just respect the process and respect who you're talking to, because it's a very small world. And this position might not be relevant for you now, or you might not be relevant for this position now, but you never know what's going to happen down the line. And also it's an opportunity for you to, I really enjoy, most of my, the way I learned what is good for me and what I'm looking for is by having many interviews for jobs that I did that were not a good fit for me, but I learned from the process. So it's also an opportunity for you, but also show respect, the same as you would expect from someone who's interviewing you. And you can learn a lot from if your interviewer is very late, and they don't show up in time or they're rude, again, this is your opportunity to learn about the company you're applying to. So it's a two-way street. Like I said, respect the process. A lot of candidates that I get, they don't like doing the task. I was asked to do a task many times. I know not always I really liked it, nor did I have the time. But if I want this position, then show that respect and do that task. If you don't have enough time, it's completely legit to say, listen, I don't have enough time to do it by that time because I have commitments, other commitment. Can we talk about it? It's important for me to do a good job on the task, but I need the time to do it. But show that respect, and also communications. It's the way you communicate is very important. You're being judged on how you communicate with your interview, with the company you're interviewing for. We have at Orca, we have the admin who scheduled who does the scheduling for the interviews. And just today she asked me, some candidates, by the time we reach them, or when, during the process, they withdraw their application because they found another job. She updates the system. We use a recruiting system. She's doing the updates in the system, but she asked me, sometimes they're very nice about how they withdraw the application. Do you want me to update that? And I told her, yes, it's important for me to know that someone, let me know that I'm interviewing about between 4 and I have about between 4 and 7 interviews each day. At least one of them each day, people just don't show up for the interview. I'm not even, and they never let me know. They just don't show up. It's a no-show. So like I said, communicate. Everyone is human. You can be late. You can have something came up and you're not able to do the interview. You're very lucky you find another job, your dream job. That's fine. Just notify and update. This the same exactly as you would expect the company to do that.
I do have another question on that topic. In terms of communication, I get asked this a lot by some of our alumni and students. Some people will go through the hiring process and even, pass the assignment, kind of pass all the interviews. And then at the contract stage, where they start talking about, salary negotiations and any other negotiations, whether it's, working from home, working remotely, hybrid, whatever it is. And at some point, something in the negotiation doesn't go the way you planned and you really wanted the job, but the conditions just aren't something that are going to be sustainable for you. What is your approach as, someone with recruiting experience, but also, as a hiring manager in a sense? What is your approach and thoughts about someone who kind of removes their candidacy last minute?
I think, first of all, let's talk about the salary expectations. It's not included in the presentation, but I will say, if you're asked in the beginning, what are your expectations? First of all, don't say a range. Don't say a range. You can say a number and say, I do have some flexibility depending on the entire package, but don't give a range. If you give a range, you're always going to get the lower end of it, by the way, or less. And then when you give that number at the beginning, give the same number at the end. There are candidates that when you talk to them in the beginning and you and I ask about salary expectations and everything is okay, we're in the same ballpark. And then by the time we're finished with the interview, with the hiring process, they're asking for like 5K more. So don't do that. You wouldn't expect me to give you an offer of 5K less. Um, and you know what? Regarding respect the process, respect yourself as well. There are a lot of aspects to a good job, and it's different from each person. And salary is important, and it might not be the most important. It might be, you know, it's okay if you're not comfortable with what you're being offered and you believe in yourself. It's legit to say, listen, I really respect your company. I've enjoyed meeting you. I think you're a great company. I think this is a great position, but I just don't feel that that your offer reflects my abilities and my potential. And I politely withdraw my application. That's fine. Again, it falls into communication. But don't take a job that you don't feel comfortable with the salary and keep looking for another job.
I think that's a really, really important point to touch on, the whole aspect and element of communicating respectfully and with like the way you communicate in a respectful manner, withdrawing your application. So thank you so much. That was a great answer.
I have a question, please. Can I
Yes.
ask? Or should I wait for a...
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. I'm a Jolt. I graduated the POMA class, the POMA course a few months ago. And I have a question about the culture of a startup company. And I'm asking this because this is HR related question. You are the head of HR at your company. And I don't know if I represent some of the people who are joining us today, but many of us are meeting at the first phase very young recruiters, and they are the gatekeepers by all means. And many of us here are highly experienced with a rich resume that can fit greatly to the job that a certain company or startup is publishing. The thing is that I feel that the young recruiters, you know, without insulting anyone, all of us.
I'm not young anymore, so I'm not being insulted.
Yeah, no, I mean that I respect everyone who is talking with me, of course, although he's 15 years younger than me. But the thing is that my feeling is that the young recruiters feel that we do not fit the startup culture. And I think that, well, we cannot educate the market, okay? But I think that perhaps in Orca, or perhaps if you are part of an HR community of startup, I think that we should be meeting recruiters that are more or less in our age. I've been interviewed many times by young recruiters, and I was rejected by the first, really by the first conversation. I think that for me, for example, it's a waste of time to hear about the company, okay? I'm a grown-up person. If I come to an interview, I'm learning before about the company. So I don't need to hear 10 minutes lecture about the company. I think that 2 minutes, 3 minutes top will be enough. And I think that young recruiters do not value our experience and knowledge. And by that, we don't even get the chance to see the director that we may have a chance to work with. So I will be happy to hear your opinion about it. And because I really feel that those gatekeepers, because they think that I might be their mother or something like that, rejecting me on that basis. And this is really too bad. So And I've worked in a startup company, but it doesn't seem to be interesting anyone. And I've been also in the public sector. And this is also a point that this experience is not being valued. And I have a rich international background working in a startup company, in a governmental entity, by working internationally. This is also why I ask you if you're working with governments or public entities at Orca. But these are two different questions, and I would love to hear your opinion.
I'll answer the last question first. I didn't really understand what do you mean if we're working with government institutions? Are we hiring from government institutions? Or?
No, first of all, does Orca have governmental entities or public entities as customers?
No,
this is one question.
We're focused or aimed currently only on the commercial shipping industry.
Okay. Okay, so this is one.
I can tell you that all of our customers are non-tech. Like I said, the maritime world is very much the same as it was 100 years ago. Our CEO is 34 years old, and I joke that he needs like an aging filter in Zoom when he talks to our customers, because what happened is when he first approached our customers, they were laughing at him because he's very young. So it's exactly the opposite of what you might be experiencing. But so Orca is not, we don't focus on government right now. There is a lot of interest in security or government agencies in this product, but we're not there. It's not our aim. And regarding your first comments or question, I'm aware of what you're describing, and I don't feel it's going to change. You know, it's not just, they're getting younger every time. And I think today recruiters are in high demand as much as developers, tech recruiters. But I will say this, there is, and I will show you in a bit in the later slides, there are some things that you can do to just pass that gatekeeper, and you can maybe learn a bit more. And then also when they're describing the company, pick up on listen, not just to learn about the company. You might not need it, you might did your research before, but pick up on the vocabulary that they're using and then use it later on in the interview. And if it's boring and it's useless, keep in mind you need to pass that interview and fake it.
Yeah, by all means. I've never stopped anyone from speaking.
Yes, you know, it's my experience. It's the same experience that I sometimes experience. You know, even when I apply for a VP position, I need to go through the recruiter first. But you know, this might be my barrier to pass, but some other people have other barriers to pass. So it's just a matter of what you need to do to be able to communicate who you are and what you are and what a good fit, and pass the interview so you can continue the process. And sometimes you need to fake it.
And I do want to add to, if it's okay, Eyal, that I just add to that. I think a large part about being what we referred to as, I will compliment myself here and say a young recruiter, being that I'm still in my 20s, is the fact that at the end of the day, what I, as a recruiter, would find, you know, would make me want to continue with a candidate versus another candidate was never the question of their age. It was a question of their mentality and their approach to the interview. So if I were to say, we're talking past the resume screening process, if I were to interview someone who, you know, compared to the rest of the candidates was older, I wouldn't necessarily care about that if I didn't feel like the mindset the person was coming with was already one that was in a way, not condescending, but almost like made me very aware of the fact that they were much, much older than me. And again, not from an ageist perspective, but more from sensing that this person is probably overqualified for the position that I'm hiring for. So I think a lot of it is Eyal, you kind of said this, like play the game, but it's a little bit getting back in touch with like your mentality before, because you are transitioning to a new industry. So even though you have a lot of experience, your approach should stay entry level approach. And then you can come with this like fresh attitude and like a more fun, light attitude, and like all the motivation needed to go into an entry level position and kind of transition and shift in your career. And you'll see the difference, even with the hiring, the recruiter being, 20, even 30 years younger than you. That won't matter because the conversation and the chemistry will be there. Sorry. So that was just my addition.
Yeah, exactly that. And like I said, during the HR interview, and it doesn't matter if it's in the beginning, but it's more important if it's in the beginning and then it's the gatekeeper, like you said. You're being evaluated on cultural fit. And you can do some research ahead and see to learn what is the culture. You can see who are the employees on LinkedIn in this company and see if they're young, what is their background. But also keep in mind, especially in startup, it's sometimes dynamic is like the nicest thing you can say about it, but it's aggressive. The changes are a minute to minute changes. It's a very high pressure, and a lot of people are very young. So this is the cultural fit that they're looking for. They will look for that ability to adapt quickly, high energy, good attitude, like a positive attitude about things. And there are a lot of things in startups that you don't like. I'm sure that even people who really like changes and challenges, sometimes they're fed up with it when it's every day, all the time. But it's that just, the same, I check the candidates on their response during the interview, the same as I would check them. I assume they will act the same on the job. Okay. So, like I said, a few more specific tips. Your CV. First of all, make sure it's in English. I know Eretz Nehederet made a joke about high text working in English only. So I want to explain just the reasoning behind it. First of all, VCs and our customers will usually be global customers. Companies that are global, the English is the common language. Besides the fact that development is done in English and reading materials and marketing is done in English. So when you apply, make sure your CV is in English. You want to be able to get, like you just asked, how do I pass those gatekeepers? You pass those gatekeepers by being able to convey your message across. And if you're and we're looking for that message is that I fit for that job and that job fits for me. So if you speak the language that everything is working at, so it needs to be in English. Include keywords for the position. It doesn't matter what your experience is if you don't use the right vocabulary. And again, do that during the interview. Like I said, study what their vocabulary are. But again, for a specific position, go through job descriptions, see what keywords they're using for. And by the way, it helps when screening the CVs. And when you're using Chevrat Sama, they have a system that just screens for keywords. Make sure those keywords are there. And your experience can be the exact experience that they're looking for. But if you're not using the same vocabulary or keywords, it will be overlooked. And also, I'm not saying lie about your CV, but make sure you communicate right. you communicate, take what you did, use the right keywords, use the right vocabulary, and to get that message across. And also study the job descriptions, what they need, and integrate that into your CV according to your experience. Work on your elevator speech, and it should be the same speech on your CV, on your LinkedIn, when you present yourself during the interview. What is the elevator speech? 3 top four sentences, who you are and what you've done. 3, 4 top. And this should include who you are, what are your accomplishments, what are you good at? Imagine meeting me in an elevator, recognize me as that recruiter for that position you so much want, and you just have 2 floors up to tell me who you are and why you're a good fit for that job. That's your elevator speech. And it should be the same on your CV, on your LinkedIn, and study it and be able to present yourself in person or on Zoom today during the interviews. Make sure you write in your accomplishment and successes. Don't describe what you did day to day in each one of the positions you previously had. Write to me what you did, write in your CV for each position, what were your responsibilities, but first start with what you accomplished, what you succeeded to do, and show what you did, what your skills are through that. By the way, it's more common in male applicants rather than in female applicants. Female applicants do not usually write where their accomplishments are. We're a bit more shy about that. So make sure. By the way, when I screen CVs, I don't even read the name. I don't read the name. I don't read the age. I don't care. I go down to the experience. So that's your chance. And also adjust your CVs. It's not just one CV for all sorts of companies, for all sorts of seniorities, for all sorts of positions. Startups are looking for, even it's the same position, let's take a customer success manager. In a startup, it won't be the same thing as they're looking for as in a medium size or a large company. So adjust your CV, make sure you're aiming for what they're looking for in general, not just one specific. But if you need to make changes for just one specific application, do that. Also, per seniority, and it goes both ways. Don't under-describe your experience, but also don't, if you're applying for a junior position, because it's that transition to high tech and you need to take a few steps back, then don't mention that you just managed 300 people, because I will see that and say, okay, it's overqualified. And why would that person and I assume that this person is a manager already, and he's not hands-on enough, and he will very quickly would want to be a manager or a team lead, and we might not be able to offer that. So adjust for the seniority as well. And then also for each type of companies, if you're applying for a large corporate, that's one thing. If you're applying for startup companies where they're looking for more versatile applicants and people who don't mind doing hands-on and strategic thinking as well during all sorts, and they like these changes, adjust your CV accordingly. And also know your CV. And I don't mean, when you ask about who you are, take into assumption that either the recruiter or your interview have seen your CV, read them, or they're even, if it's in Zoom and sometimes face-to-face as well, they have it in front of them. Don't read me your CV. Don't just say over and over. And this is your chance. Take each position and know what you accomplished. Don't tell me again, just reread it. And also, if there are gaps, by the way, acknowledge those gaps. It's fine to say, I don't really have, my experience is very relevant. I've done the same things, but I haven't done it in a very fast-paced startup company before. I do, however, have a very good learning skills. I'm very creative. I'm a solution solver. I'm very dynamic. I love those changes. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So, but do acknowledge the gaps. Your LinkedIn, by the way, is the same as
have a
your
question?
CV. Yes.
You spoke about the gaps, gaps about what needs to be for the position. I mean, like what you said, I'm related to what you're saying, because like if I would like to apply to a job that I don't have the experience, but I do have the passion and I'm self-motivated and so on. So I'm just trying to understand, which gaps did you mean? I mean, like, were you related to?
First of all, if you don't have the experience, let's say 100% of the requirements you don't answer, then find what you do answer. Look back in your experience and then see what is relevant. Okay, the fact maybe you weren't outbound customer facing, but in your previous job you worked with a lot of interfaces inbound. So put those things. I've worked with a lot of interfaces. I believe in relationships. I'm a relationship builder. So always apply what is positive and what is relevant. But say, I didn't work with outbound customers before, or the customers that I've done exactly the same thing, but the customers I did work with so far are B2G and not B2B. But I understand that there are differences. I've already, by the way, started researching this, and I've taken this course or that course, and I'm being very proactive about closing all these gaps. So like I said, your LinkedIn the same, and ask for recommendations. By the way, it's not very common in Israel, but we do look at that sometimes. And it just makes your LinkedIn look better. And by the way, if you have, again, those gaps, have your colleagues, your managers put exactly those advantages that you know you have on the recommendations as well. It should be aligned with your CV. There are sometimes incredible gaps between the LinkedIn page of the candidate and their CV that you just don't realize it's the same person. It should include your elevator speech as well, and the top bar, and have a suitable picture. You know, probably not, again, I'm not your wedding pictures, but also not you in mid-burn drinking and whatever. And I'm seeing all of that. It's not funny, you know, it's not Facebook. This is your professional business card. Your applications. Finding a job, you need to work at finding work. This is what it is. You applied for a job, make a list if you're not able to remember. Before you have your first interview, go back to that job description. If you apply from LinkedIn, you can save all the jobs you applied at. But if you apply in different sources, make some sort of list or file. Remember what you applied for. It's like dating. It's a turnoff when the guy is calling the girl and she doesn't remember that she gave him her phone number. He's not very happy about that. So again, you applied for this position. Remember that when we're calling you and say, hi, we received your LinkedIn, who you are, try to, you know, I get these comments as well. can you remind me? I've sent to so many positions. I applied for so many jobs. I don't remember anymore. So if you don't remember, fake it and then go back and look. Write down the number, the name, and I've done that before as well. But when you reach that interview stage, know what company and what position you applied for. Go back to that job description before the interview, before each interview that you have, no matter if it's the second tech interview or your first HR interview or the last CEO. Go back to the job description. Go back to the company, to the company website, do your research, Glassdoor, know who you're meeting beforehand. And we all like to feel that, where candidates are excited, as well as candidates are like to feel that the companies are excited to have them and that they would like to welcome them. Look for connections, especially if there are gaps, and especially if this is your first job in high tech. Look in LinkedIn for connections and don't be shy. Everyone's doing that. And write, hi, I noticed that you're familiar with this and this. I applied for that job. Or if it's someone you know that is working in this company, hi, I saw that your company published this position and I think I'm a great fit. Do you mind sending my CV as well? It's a win-win, because if you get hired, they get the referral bonus. So they're more than happy to pass your CV as well. And it's a win for you because we treat employee referral very highly. It's the best channel for hiring. So, and for me, it's a win-win as well. I'd love to spend all my hiring budget instead of on Hasamaz on the referral bonuses. So don't be shy. My battery is running low. And also add a short note in English. There might be gaps, like you just said. Say, hi, I come with vast experience. I'm very excited. I think this is best. I'd love to get that opportunity for that interview. Interviews. I think I'm ready. Oh yeah, do you mind taking it for a minute? I'm just gonna run and get the charger.
Absolutely.
Sorry for that.
No, absolutely. You're fine. Do you want me to continue with the slide?
If you don't, just 30 seconds.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Eyal, if it is possible to mention in one sentence or two, the thing is that every time you apply for a different position, you have to adapt your CV naturally. But your LinkedIn profile stays the same.
Right.
Because it's like a core profile. So if a recruiter go directly to your LinkedIn, like, because it's clickable from the very beginning of your CV. So how do you narrow this gap and make sure, because you cannot adapt your LinkedIn profile every time that you apply for a position.
No, the titles should be what I said, that it should be the same. By the way, we can develop real-time AI systems, but then the battery of the computer dies. So, this is our world. Sorry for that. The titles should be the same. The years should be the same. And the general description of your position should be the same. Go into details, and that's where you can use that adaptation in your CV. But the title, the years, and that one sentence of what you did or what was your domain or your responsibilities, that should go in LinkedIn. Don't go into extra details on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
I do want to add to that, if that's okay with you, Eyal. Generally, the screening on your resume, when a recruiter is screening your resume as opposed to screening on LinkedIn, the things that are looked at are also a little bit different. Generally, the people who will screen your resume through LinkedIn are people, we call them sourcers. They're kind of people who their job is to find applicants that are appropriate for a certain job. So one of personally, I think, and Eyal, you can kind of disagree with me if you disagree. I'm open to hearing this, but I personally always viewed my LinkedIn as my opportunity to maybe expand and clarify on things that might not have been clear on my resume, because my resume had to be 1 page long, as opposed to my LinkedIn that doesn't really have a limit. And if anybody wanted to filter through really quickly, all they had to do was click Control F and kind of look for the specific skills. So one of the advantages, I think, that having LinkedIn, you know, I completely, this doesn't contradict. I think LinkedIn and your resume should always align. But if there's something that you decided that wasn't necessary for you to put on your resume because you wanted it to be shorter, but it is important for you to share it with a recruiter, then you can definitely put that on your LinkedIn. And that kind of gives a full picture. You know, if you were talking Eyal about gaps, then that could be a way to like approach a gap. Let's say if you took a gap between like 2 positions or something. So that's just my approach.
Yeah, you have, for example, you have that LinkedIn skills. Click those skills. You don't have that opportunity to do in your CV. And by the way, what you just mentioned, Ariel, about the keywords as sourcers, they just use, when you're doing sourcing, you enter keywords and then you get a whole lot of profiles. So your LinkedIn, even more than your CV, should have those keywords that for the positions that you're looking for. Whether it's tools, systems, experience, all those things. But do keep it general. It should not be overwhelming. Okay, so interviews, I said, study the job description, know what they're looking for. I think that, like I said, if there's an interviewing technique that I don't say anything about the position, I might describe a bit about the company and just 1-2 sentences about the position. And then I'm going to ask the candidate to introduce himself and tell me what, because if I explain a lot about the position, then the candidate will pick up on what I'm looking for and then just give me the answers that might be a good fit. But if you have that recruiter or the manager start and tell you a whole lot about the position, listen very carefully and pick up on what they're looking for. And if not, that's more important to study the job description. Okay, so you know how to aim your answers better to what they're looking for, and you can learn yourself as well. Learn about the company and the interviewer, go to the website, study what is the product. Know from the website or from the LinkedIn about, you can learn about a lot about, like I said, the vocabulary that they're using. And you can also learn about what is their culture from the way that they are describing themselves, or from who are the employees of this company and where they come from, or where different sites, if it's a global company or not. And please come prepared and on time. Like I said, it's not very common these days. And then also Zoom interviews, they're equivalent to face-to-face interview. Make sure you have the time to take the interview, that you're taking it from your computer, that you have good sound, check ahead, not from your car, not from jogging. I had one candidate take the interview from her phone while jogging on Zoom.
Did she get the job?
Yeah, no, but not because of she was jogging. And then also just think about it as the same as you were interviewing face to face. But Zoom has a lot of advantages. You can have those notes that you made before about who you are, or your elevator speech, or your accomplishments and successes and your greatest achievements, just laying next to you, and no one's going to notice that. Well, if it's face to face, you need to know that. But everything else, it's the same. At least from the top, from the bottom, from a half up, you need to be dressed the same as well, like as it was a complete interview. I don't care if you're sitting in your pajama pants, but if you're going on an interview with on your pajama, and I see that, it's not respecting the process. Like I said, study your elevator speech, know your CV, and know what you're looking for. Make sure this is what the message that you're conveying to that whomever is sitting in front of you, is that a message that I'm good and I'm a good fit. And always nail that interview. Try to do the best to nail that interview. If it's then, even if it's not a good fit for you and you decide you don't want this position and it's an awful company and you never want to work for them, or I'm just just do a really good job and make sure the no at the end is yours, and you convey it respectfully, because you never know. And then also prepare questions. It shows engagement in the process. Even if you read before on the website, on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, you checked everything, make sure you have questions. It shows you're curious and you're eager to learn and you're engaged. And then again, at the end of it, if you don't first succeed, just try and try again. It will happen. And something switched with the direction of the text in the presentation, so the explanation marks would be at the end. But Ariella, sorry for that. Don't give up. It's an awful thing to do, to go through to look for a job. It just kind of, you're putting yourself up for a test every day, again and again and again, and it doesn't always work, and it's an awful experience, and it's a humbling experience. All you need at that is there just that one job at the end of it. And if you feel like you're being despaired and you're in a bad mood, then don't schedule that interview for that day or postpone it by a day, because it's important that you come with good energy to those interviews, and you won't get another chance. And again, I looked for a job just 4 months ago, so I know exactly what it feels. And I think every HR should look for a job every few years, just to remind ourselves that there's people at the other end of it. But it's okay to be, despaired for a day, and then do something fun for yourself, and then the next day go back to it. It will work. It just takes time. That's it.
Thank you so much, Eyal. I have to say personally, coming from recruiting myself and hearing all your tips and tricks, it's always so interesting and so fun to hear those moments when like you confirm things that I knew, and then like also give me some new insight and new thoughts that I personally didn't have. And again, I'm allowing myself to speak for everyone when I say that I think all your tips are things that we could all use for our next job search, especially being in, the place that we are, where we're transitioning from one industry to the other. We're kind of, even people with experience here, we're all starting from scratch. So first, I really want to thank you. And I do want to take this opportunity to allow you guys to kind of ask Eyal any questions that you have. if you don't have questions, I always have questions. So, but
I have
you guys
one.
go first.
I'm
Yes.
just gonna add just one more thing. You know, what my experience taught me is that I always go back to that CEO of the first startup that I worked for that gambled on me. And that to be able to see something beyond just what is written in the CV and look for that extra thing.
Yeah.
And I do that today, and I have to say it's the best hires I always get.
Amazing. Thank you.
But it's
Uh,
not always an option, by the way. So all you need
Question,
is
if I
one
could.
person.
Yes, Alex, and then Yehuda, you also had a question, right? Okay, so Alex, you go, and then Yehuda.
So it's hi. Thank you. I have a couple of CV questions, kind of technical ones. First of all, so I made my CV like double columned, so it will be easier for a human recruiter to see. And then I ran it through a site that has like AI that tells you how good your CV is, and it says, well, the AI can't read this because it's double column. So the first thing I'd like to know is like who actually sees my CV first? Is it a machine or is it a person? Like where's the balance in that? And the second one, when you're transitioning into a new field, you have to kind of translate your soft skills more, not the hard skills that take fewer words. And also, we've been told to try not to just use the buzzwords, say I'm detail oriented, but more try to back it up with a number or an accomplishment or something. But again, that's more words. So you as a recruiter, what would you prefer to see? Just a little more words, or shorter but less, something that just includes the words and kind of is maybe like everybody else's?
Regarding your CV, it should be very readable. Don't try to be extra smart. My recommendation is go to those websites, or even Word have a CV template, and just use that.
I did.
Yeah. It's just, and by the way, I did that the same. You don't know if it's a screening system that is going through it first and just picking up on keywords, but it is, so it kind of goes back to your second question. So those keywords need to be there, or someone that is human reading it. But I sometimes get so lost in CVs that I just can't read them. So I appreciate the effort of someone being really creative, but I just can't read them.
You mean because of length, or because they're not
Because they try
clear?
to be creative, and it's like with bubbles going in each direction, and I don't know what applies to what. And
No, I promise you, it's just like one column for like skills, whatever, and another column for like summary and experience. Nothing too fancy, just because it's more readable that way. Just
my
that's the only
recommendation
reason.
is go for one column, write on the top your details, your name, that elevator speech, and you can follow it up with top skills, and then your work experience, and then your education, and then your other skills or whatever.
Interest or whatever. Okay, thank you.
And your second question was?
Well, it was kind of
Yeah.
an answer to
Uh,
both, I guess.
No, I don't
mean,
just
so
use those. No, but I did want to say, don't
oh
just
yeah,
use
about
those keywords.
translating. Yeah.
Yeah, don't just use those keywords. So show short, but do include some substance in it.
So like something in the middle.
And don't say I'm detailed oriented. By the way, you have those researchers that if you ask people if they drive worse than average, average, or better than average? What are their driving skills? Everyone is driving, their driving their driving skills
Exactly.
is better than average. So everyone is detailed oriented. All job descriptions ask for you to be detailed oriented. So you can say, I've worked with a lot of data or a lot of details, and I'm very minded to that, and for that, or just put in the skills in the top. But
Okay.
if you include it in your experience, then explain about it.
All right. Thank you.
Yehuda?
Can I ask a small question?
Wait, Yuda, we cannot hear you.
Yehuda, something's wrong with your sound. And Idan, I will remember you're up next.
I will.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you for your time and the insights. It was very educational and meaningful for me. It's kind of going another step from Alex's question for the people with experience, but in other fields, especially in your field, which is very minor in Israel. But how do you take people like me that come with experience in an ordinary or old-fashioned industry and try to translate it into high-tech company? I'm sure definitely that I have a lot to sell these to company like yours.
Again, when even on your CV and on your LinkedIn, and when you're being interviewed and being asked, think of what is the essence of your experience and use the language of the high tech to describe it. So customer relations is customer relations, and it doesn't matter if it's non-tech industry, if it's the hotels industry, or if it's the high tech. What is the essence? Being able to be service oriented, to be customer centric, and then convey how your experience applied to that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You have that experience. It's just a matter, how you communicate it. And when you communicate your experience, use the language, the vocabulary, the keywords of your listener, your audience. And your audience is recruiters and interviewers at the moment.
Thank you, Eyal. Idan?
I have a small, maybe silly question. I have a funny email address. Is that an issue?
It might be for some, yes. I
Yeah.
would recommend changing it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone
You
else?
just don't know. Don't take that chance.
Anyone else have any questions before I?
I have a small question. I don't know
Yes,
if it's something that you can answer, but I would love to ask anyway. Let's say that I apply to a job right now, okay? And I don't have 100% of what they're asking for. What are let's say that they're asking for experience. If I come with no experience for that specific job, should I still apply for it? Like some of them write a year or 2 years experience. Okay. I'm not talking about those that write 3 years, 4 years and more. I mean, like, how can I know? Because from my point of view, I think that I can, but many of them will eliminate it at the beginning with if I don't have the experience for it.
Okay, so a little bit about the process that is going on beyond the job description. The job description is the ideal candidate, and we describe all the requirements that we needed, and we always up them a notch, because I know that if I'm going to write 5 years experience, I'm going to get from 2 up, and I'm going to get some non-experienced people as well. So it's describing the ideal candidate with all the requirements. We're probably never going to find it. And also when we arrange the requirements, the most important ones are usually on the top of the requirement list. And we know that there is some, there's room for change. When we write 2 to 4, I might get 1 as well, or not experienced. And we know that we'll need to compromise. We're not going to get that ideal candidate. And it's okay. So apply for that job, but try to emphasize, just like I said, adapt your CV. Try to emphasize what you do have out of the requirements.
Amazing. Honestly,
Yeah,
Eyal,
Ariela, just one question. We will.
Yeah.
I see that the meeting is recorded, so we will get. We would be able to get a record of it because
Yeah.
I came a bit later, so I missed some of the really good insights of Eyal.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
missed all the good stuff.
It was all good stuff. So you only missed some of the
Exactly. Exactly. I have the impression that everything was a good stuff. So.
Yes, the session will be posted, and we'll update you as soon as we post it. Don't worry about that.
Via email, right?
Via email. It's going to be on our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, you're going to be able to watch it and access it. And I do have, if anyone else has any questions before I kind of take over with mine. Okay, so before I go on with my own personal questions, we did have someone who had to leave early, but asked 2 questions. One, which I think you already touched on, but I think it's worth repeating. It's in terms of referrals. You were talking about how referrals is the best way to kind of promote your CV for any job because it's a win-win. His question was, how is a referral as a recruiter? How do recruiters approach referrals differently than they do someone who applies, via your career website or even LinkedIn?
I always treat applicants that I get through referrals a bit more respectfully, because I know that there is, well, sometimes they don't know. It's just a link that they shared and that was reshared but a lot of times they do know that person. And even if there's a gap in experience, like I said, this is your best chance of getting in that door. Because I would ask, do you know this person, or how much are you familiar with it? And I just now hired a position that we had open, a customer success manager. I think this position was open way before I came. It was open for about 10 months. And I got this CV from someone who has worked in a government institute. It wasn't not high tech, not even industry. You can say B to G, but it probably was G to G. And I got it from this one of our employees, and she said, and I asked her about it, and she said, listen, I don't know him, but I did get it from a friend, and he really highly recommended him. And he said he's so smart and he can do that adaptation, and it's worth an interview. And we hired it. And it was a position, I think there are thousands of applicants for that position.
So basically, to sum up,
that's the best way to get your foot in the door.
Amazing. And his second question was kind of touching on the fact that this is more of a general industry question from your experience. He knows, he kind of said that he knows that there's a huge need for different employees for various roles, but he also is aware of the fact that junior roles are on lower demand than other roles possibly. And he was wondering if you knew how that gap could be explained, that on the one hand, everybody's talking about that need to recruit all the time. And on the other hand, there aren't enough, in his perspective, enough opportunities for junior roles. And if you have any idea for like a solution for that gap. It's a big question, so.
Solution, I'm not sure, but I think I can provide an explanation. First of all, COVID changed a lot in terms of our ability to manage teams, and all of a sudden managers needed to face to use a lot of management skills that they did not have, or they're not used to, or nor they want to ever deal with, because you're managing offsite and you're managing hybrid models, and you never have that, you don't have that one-on-one conversation anymore, face to face. And that is, and I think a lot of managers are now being scared of hiring juniors because they don't know how to do that onboarding, and they don't know how to manage them when it's not a full-time in the office capacity. So that's one thing that COVID did bring a lot of more jobs with it, but it's a problem when it's juniors. During the first 2-3 waves, I know we were hiring people that we never once saw. I had new employees join the company, go through the hiring process, join the company, work for 3-4 months, and no one ever met them. So this is a challenge that for managers, a lot of times it's really scary when it's juniors, and you need to be kind of a bit more on it in the beginning. Another thing is being able to hire juniors is dependent on the training capacity that the company can provide. And I can say in Orca AI, we sometimes in certain teams, we can provide training, and then we can hire on potential base and just fresh juniors, no experience whatsoever. But in some teams, we don't have the capacity to train. We just don't have that. We're a startup. We don't even have a formal knowledge base center, and it's a problem. I think it's you just need to pass that and do what you can to educate yourself, and there's a lot of reading materials and studies you can do on your own, and just make sure that if you apply for a junior position which have or you have far less experience than what is needed, acknowledge those gaps, but also mention your learning skills and your proactive and your attitude and your energy and your and give examples of things that you learned yourself by yourself, you researched and you taught yourself, whether it's on different positions and whether it's now when you're looking for another job.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. So guys, we are at the end of our webinar. We did kind of go over time. So Eyal, I do really want to thank you for your willingness to kind of stay on with us until all our questions were answered. Again, I do want to, I said this already 3 times, I'm going to say it a 4th. Thank you on behalf of myself and, all of us students and alumni of Jolt. We're so appreciative of your willingness to kind of help us and guide us through this sometimes confusing, sometimes frustrating journey that is trying to transition into tech. And I feel personally listening to you, I feel hopeful, knowing our alumni and students that like a lot of you, hopefully all of you, will be able to kind of overcome this challenge and find your next position. And I did talk to Eyal before, and I do want to kind of share with you all that Eyal has been very kind in willing to accept any connections from us that we send over on LinkedIn. So I do want to take this opportunity to kind of encourage you to connect to Eyal. And Eyal is also going to join our alumni LinkedIn group on, so as soon as the students here who are still students, as soon as you become graduates and you join the group, you'll also be able to interact with Eyal over there. And for the alumni who have not joined the group yet, I encourage you to do so. So again, I will sum up. Thank you so much, Eyal, for your time,
Sure.
your insights, your ideas. You
And
were
your-
as amazing as I said you were going to be. So
Thank you. I'm not sure about that, to be continued, but if you ask, you're more than welcome to ask me questions in LinkedIn as well. But if you write me a message, just write in the headline from the JOLT session, because I get about 50 or 60 messages a day and I don't get back to everyone. So I can't all the time. It takes me a while. But if I see JOLT, I'll answer you right away.
we appreciate that even more.
Thank you so much.
Thank
a lot.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
and
much. It was Amazing. very
Thank you.
interesting.
have a warm
Great.
evening.
Good night. Good evening.
Bye bye.
Have a great night.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great
Bye-bye.
night.